As Washington urges Kiev to accept or amend the 28-point agreement, trust in the U.S. mediation role may be unraveling. The Witkoff leak didn't just pierce diplomatic secrecy, it reshaped the psychology of the negotiations. Kiev fears being cornered. Moscow sees an opening. Europeans fear being sidelined. And the White House is managing bipartisan anger at home. To help us make sense of these fast-moving developments, we're joined by two distinguished analysts from Kiev, Mr. Ivan Us, the Ukrainian political analyst, and from Washington, Mr. Peter Roff, the contributing editor at Newsweek. Gentlemen, welcome to In Depth. Mr. Us, how has the leak affected public and political trust in Washington's peace initiative inside Ukraine, especially within Zelensky's team, just hours before the expected Ukrainian response?
Greetings to you, greetings to guests, and greetings to all audience. You know that in Ukraine, from the first moment of appearance of information about this peace plan from 28 items, people was extremely angry because we read in this peace plan the act of capitulation of Ukraine. Then in Ukraine was said that probably it's written in Russia before the leaks in Bloomberg. We have a clear feeling that people in Russia wrote this peace plan, and furthermore, we start to find some normal for Russian language, but abnormal for English language formulation. That's why we have a feeling that the persons who prepared it in Moscow ordered to have this plan without any changes, and even some grammatical changes or changes that could make the same ideological thing but more comfortable for English language, they was not included into this plan. Then when we hear about the deadline, the 27th of November, of course, President Zelensky immediately addressed to the people of Ukraine, because he wants to say that I can talk about this plan if I received support from people. And people, of course, say no. That's why Marco Rubio, as the Secretary of State, when he started to be engaged in this process, said that there is no any deadline. That's why now I don't think that we could discuss deadline, because according to Marco Rubio, we in discussion, we adding some things, but we have no deadline at all. Thank you.
Mr. Roff, in Washington, lawmakers from both parties criticized the leaked call. How damaging is this for the White House's claim of neutrality?
Good afternoon, and first let me wish everyone who's celebrating a happy Thanksgiving as it is here in America. It has been politically damaging for the White House, but I do have to say, and I hesitate to use the phrase, that the leak of the supposed transcript coming at the time it has all the hallmarks of a Russian influence operation designed to divide America and Ukraine, to divide America from Ukraine's European allies, and to complicate rather than simplify the negotiations. It's too convenient to not suspect that the Russians played a hand in exposing this conversation, or perhaps even in creating the transcript of this confirmation. It disturbs me that it hasn't been denounced by the White House, but it doesn't surprise me that it hasn't been confirmed either. It is the soapy sponge in the punch bowl at the party, and it makes it much tougher to end this war that should have been ended.
Reinforce the belief that Kiev is being pressured, be it by the US or Russia, into concessions?
Of course, even before this leak in Ukraine, we were sure that this draft of the plan right in Russia. And after that leak, we received the evidence of the fact that really it was prepared in Russia, and Russia started give it to special Trump envoy Steve Witkoff, and he gave it to Trump and said, I know how to finish that war. It will be the same as the US think that they finished war in Gaza. But you know, of course, that there is no finish there, and of course in Ukraine there will be no finish. That's why in Ukraine, of course, we was not glad of this plan. Then it was changed to 19 items, and then it becomes better. But nevertheless, we understand that Russia hardly to agree on the newly changed plan. That's why I think that in 2 or 3 weeks we all forgot about this plan, because unfortunately the war go on, people are dying, but Ukraine still don't want to capitulate, because we understand that if to make a historic parallel, now we, the whole world, situated at the year of 1938, when that time a lot of countries pressed on Czech Republic to give part of its country to Nazi Germany, and now some in this plan we see pressure on Ukraine to give some territory to Russia. If we do that, it means that we move from 1938 to 1939, where Nazi Germany start the Second World War. So if to give to Russia what they want, I think in a year or so, they start next World War. That's why Ukraine don't want to do that. And we explained it to our European partners and, of course, to the United States of America. The European partners understand us. Thank you.
Mr. Roth, what about the timeline that was set for Kiev? Does it reflect U.S. strategic urgency or political pressure from Trump himself?
I think it more appropriately reflects political pressure, the president's desire to get this done. He is an impatient man. He has repeatedly promised, or suggested at least, that he could have ended this war in 24 hours. It's been almost a year since he resumed his presidency. And we frankly look no closer to peace than we were when the president and President Putin met in Alaska several months ago. There's a lot in the leaked document, in the proposed agreement, that causes me great concern. But I will point everyone to U.S. Secretary of State and Presidential National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, who referred to it as a living, breathing document, meaning that it is not a final offer. It is a starting point. It is still under negotiation. I think that ultimately we get peace here in some version that allows for economic integration of Ukraine into the greater European community, but takes NATO membership off the table, perhaps permanently. That doesn't really concern me. I do think that the rush to embrace the former Soviet republics as part of NATO, especially those that did not have a long history of independence as the Baltic states did, may have been a bridge too far and may have been provocative unnecessarily to the Russians. I do think as well that this is an argument that should have been had during the Obama administration, when Putin sent Russian troops into Crimea, rather than leaving it till now, because effectively, by acceding to the Russian occupation of Crimea in eastern Ukraine, we are saying essentially that Ukraine is on the table to be carved up. It's just a question of how big a bite Mr. Putin wants to take each time he comes for a meal.
Mr. Us, you've hinted at the European backing to Ukraine. Now, European allies have expressed alarm that Washington may be negotiating outside NATO channels. Does this strengthen Kiev's position or weaken it? Does the League strengthen European support for Ukraine, or does it fragment Allied messaging?
Of course, Europeans know the experience of the start of Second World War that I mentioned before. That's why they don't want to see this plan, especially in terms of requirement about the frozen assets, frozen Russian assets in Europe, that Europe should send 100 billion to Ukraine, and then to some fund that will be created between Russia and the US. Of course, Europe don't want to do that. Then, of course, Europeans, as I said, as Ukraine actually too, was not glad of that plan, and the League that appeared in Bloomberg, as for me, practically making dot in the serious discussion about this plan, because it means that this plan prepared in Russia. So how the US can lobby the plan prepared in other country. According to US local procedure, it should receive the permission from the Department of State and from the Senate, as I remember. And there was no legal expertise from both of those structures. That's why now we see the problem. Of course, the question who organized this league, because as for me, it's probably unexpected country. It's China, because you know that Van Yi, the second secretary of Communist Party in China, said that they don't want this war will over because it pay attention of US to it. That's why probably they could organize or some other one. We still don't know, but frankly speaking, this league can eliminate the discussion of plan that was actually dangerous not only for Ukraine but for whole world, because it avoided the aggressor Russia, awarded by recognition of some territories that they annexed. Now this plan means recognition of it. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Roth, do you expect Russia to exploit the leak diplomatically during Witkoff's upcoming visit to Moscow? How do you think Russia will deal or use these leaks?
Oh, as I said, I don't think that you can discount for a second that Russia is responsible for the leaks, and they're already using them. They'll use them diplomatically. They'll use them for propaganda. They will use them to divide the Ukrainians from the United States, the Europeans from the United States, to sow the seeds of distrust that the United States is working for a pro-Europe solution to the Ukraine crisis and the end of the war. Remember that a significant portion of President Trump's domestic political base does not see this as a fight that America needs to care about. Those who do are unreconstructed Cold Warriors like myself, who are as suspicious of the Russians as they were of the Soviet Union. And they don't really see a difference between Leonid Brezhnev and Vladimir Putin, at least as far as territorial ambitions are concerned. So they will use this to exploit all of those differences, because the longer this goes on, the more secure that Putin feels he is in occupying Ukraine, the harder it will be to dislodge him. The problem remains that President Zelensky has not made clear that he is willing to make concessions to end this war. They are not negotiating from a position of strength. They are negotiating from a position in which no one expected them to be. They are surviving. They are holding on. They are inflicting considerable damage on the Russians. They're not winning, but they're not exactly losing either. There is not a Russian victory imminent. I think Putin is hoping that people get tired and start to focus on other things. And he has not yet had to deal with maximum economic pressure, which is the kind of weapon that Donald Trump knows better than most presidents how to use because of his business experience. He's not a lawmaker. He's a businessman. He understands how markets should function. He understands where Russia's vulnerable. It's not vulnerable militarily. It's vulnerable economically. And he can exploit that if he can get Macron and Starmer to stand behind him. Unfortunately, given their political position domestically in their countries, they are not reliable allies for the long term.
Mr. Oos, what do you think is the most realistic path Zelensky will take or deal with the proposal? An approval, a conditional acceptance, or an outright rejection?
Of course, it's not the best idea to reject, because, as President Zelensky said in his address to people, that we can lose our main ally, the United States of America. And taking into account that for Donald Trump, it's close story, rejected will be not the best idea. But if Donald Trump, due to the local pressure, start to say that I don't know what means this plan, who prepared it, and we just want to use it as the end of war. But if Ukraine don't want to end it in such manner, like this plan proposed, probably I will not say that it's needed to be. So, and in this situation, of course, Ukraine said, okay, if Donald Trump says that this plan is not so important for him, we so will reject it, but not before, because from political point of view, from political perspective, for Ukraine it will be a very bad idea to support, on the one hand, to support plan that means our capitulation, on the other hand, said that we reject the plan and make a relationship with Donald Trump much harder. So at first we will wait that Donald Trump surrounding and senators, first of all, such people like Lindsey Graham, like Mitch McConnell, and other like Fitzpatrick, so at least three Republicans, three senators from the Republican Party in US, they now express their negative attitude. So if it will be an opinion of party, of Republican Party, of course, Trump can change his mind about this plan, and of course, Ukraine after that can say that we are, of course, not support this plan too, but we want to preserve good relationship with Donald Trump. That actually President Zelensky said in his address. Thank you.
Mr. Roth, how much does Europe's reaction matter at this stage? Could European leaders present their own framework?
Of course, European leaders can present their own framework. There's nothing preventing them, but I don't think that Putin takes that seriously. I think the only thing he takes seriously is what the United States does. And to the extent that he can divide Trump from Macron and Starmer and the other European allies, the stronger he thinks his position is, because Putin understands. They all have to hang together if they pursue the strategy of maximum economic sanctions, which is the only place Putin's vulnerable. Nobody wants a Russian dishwasher. Nobody wants a Russian computer. Nobody wants anything Russia has to sell to the rest of the world except for oil and natural gas and critical minerals like gold and rare earth minerals that are necessary for computing and cell phones and defense kinds of things. If Trump can lead Europe in closing those markets off for Russia so that they can't sell, they will have no hard currency to fuel their war. Trump can lean on China. Trump can lean on India. He can extract concessions from both to stop them from buying the things that Russia has to sell. He can deny Putin the money he needs to run his war and indeed to run his country. That will hurt. That's real. But that only happens if everybody hangs together. Starmer can't jump out of that agreement in 6 months and say, well, you know, my poll numbers are in the tank here in England. Labor is going down. They want to vote me out, my own party. I've got to do something to get the price of energy down. So we're going to start buying Russian to work. And they can't do that. They can't be united, obviously, if they're divided. And the news coming out of this leak divides them. It is very much in the Russians' interest, which is why I suspect the Russians of being responsible for the leak and perhaps have fabricated the leak out of a real conversation that may have occurred between the two men. But there's no guarantee that these transcripts don't include disinformation.
Well, Mr. Us, how do Ukraine's allies in Europe then view Kushner's influence on U.S. policy towards the conflict? How might this affect the broader international coordination?
Oh, we see that Jared Kushner returned to policy because he was one of the top advisors of Donald Trump under the first presidency of Donald Trump. After the start of the second presidency, Jared Kushner was not so engaged. Now he returned to this policy, and quite possible that he returned just to substitute Steve Witkoff, who played the big role in the Donald Trump administration in solving the main actually existing conflict in the world. But let's be frank, it was a large criticism for Steve Witkoff, not only from Ukrainian side, of course from Ukrainian too. And now we will see how Jared Kushner will be in this role. But Europeans, as I understand, they're glad that at least they can talk with Jared Kushner. So as I said, that it was good when Marco Rubio becomes the main negotiator and substituting the Mr. Driscoll, the Minister of Local Army, as I understand, in the U.S. local policy. And if Driscoll said like ultimatum that you have date till the 27th of November and that's all, Marco Rubio said that there is no time limit and let's discuss items while Driscoll said no. That's why we will see how actually Jared Kushner will be in the role of mediator or person who will organize negotiation for end this war. Thank you.
Mr. Roth, one final question. If Zelensky conditionally accepts the proposal, could that buy time for a more stable multilateral process that would be satisfactory for the European allies, Ukraine and Russia as well, or will it be very detrimental to Ukraine?
Oh, I think at this point, anything that buys some time works to Zelensky's favor. Anything that is the basis for a ceasefire, which negotiations on a final plan could be, I think that works to his advantage more than it works to Russia's advantage.
Mr. Ivan Us in Kiev and Mr. Peter Roth in Washington. Gentlemen, thank you both for your insights and for helping us understand this critical moment in Ukraine's war political endgame. Now, as the world waits for Ukraine's next move, the coming hours will determine whether diplomacy can survive this blow or whether the war is about to enter an even more uncertain phase. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today's episode of In Depth. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned for more coming up here on Q News.